So this is paragraph 5, sentences 1 and 2 from page 232 of your chapter 16 translation and sentence postings. And I've already got my sentence typed out, and I've already got all my parentheses plugged in, so that way we'll be able to get into the parsing and translation pretty easily. So, beginning here, we've got agarthintes. You recognize this theta thentase ending here as, you should recognize it as an aorist passive participle. And the stem here, ager, comes from agero. So this is an aorist passive participle, and the ntase ending is our masculine plural nominative participle. And because the subject is plural, you recognize this second aorist active indicative form as also third plural. If we were to just see Elthan by itself, it could be first singular, but given the context, we see that because our subject is plural, this is going to be third plural as well. Tas skenas, this is very simple feminine plural accusatives here. And then tone ekthron. Ho ekthros is the noun in question here, and so we've got masculine plural genitive there, and masculine plural genitive here. Kai idu uk estin. We have a present indicative third singular. Remember, with forms of a me, you do not need to include voice, active, middle, and passive voice. You don't need to include that with forms of a me. So this is just present indicative third singular. And let's say, for example, that you came to Stratiotes and you did not remember what kind of noun it was, whether it was masculine, feminine, or neuter. Well, if you recognize oudes over here, and this ace ending of oudes comes from the Greek number 1, heis, you would recognize that oudes here is, well, masculine singular nominative. And so even if you couldn't remember that stratiotes is a masculine noun of the first declension, just like prophetes or mathetes, you should be able to figure out that stratiotes is also masculine singular nominative, because oudes here refers to, it describes stratiotes. And so they need to agree in gender, number, and case. It's a masculine singular nominative. You recognize this pretty easily, same here. Okay, so now we have this verb, and we just looked at some of these kinds of verbs in the last chapter. This is a contract verb from poieo. You recognize that poi stem there. Remember, poieo is an epsilon contract verb. Well, our epsilon of that verb stem has elongated to an eta. That epsilon elongates to this eta here. And so we have further reduplication of the stem and a kappa ending, so that is indicative of a perfect tense. So perfect active indicative, and we recognize that epsilon nu ending there as third singular. We also have a third singular subject. It's not I, it's not you who are doing the action, it's he, the Lord, doing the action. And so that's a perfect active indicative third singular. These are pretty straightforward, masculine plural accusatives. Again, if you happen to come across stratiotes and you could not remember what this form is, your article will never lie to you. You recognize that this is a masculine plural accusative article, and it is the article that goes with this word stratiotas. This is a masculine plural accusative. Surias is feminine singular genitive, and it's the soldiers of Syria. The soldiers of Syria. So you recognize it's a genitive case, and if you could not parse it because you didn't know if it was masculine or singular or neuter, just keep in mind that the overwhelming majority of place names in Greek are feminine. The exception is when it's named after a person, like Israel. Israel is obviously a guy, if you remember the biblical story, and so it's named after a guy, and therefore it is masculine. But most of the other place names in the Bible, like Rome, Greece, Egypt, and almost every town are all feminine. So, heard phonane, feminine singular accusative, akusai. So you recognize aku here from akuo, the verb I hear. And then the psi ending, you hopefully should recognize it as the aorist active infinitive ending. And that's exactly what we have here, aorist active infinitive. Again, phonane is feminine singular accusative. Dunamios comes from another one of our third declension nouns. And we just learned this pattern in this chapter, chapter 16. This eos ending. This is feminine singular genitive. And you also just learned megales in chapter 16, which is also feminine singular genitive. So phonane dunamios megales, a great sound, a great powerful sound, really, a great powerful sound. Phonane again. Hippo here it actually sounds like hippo as in hippopotamus. So that's because the word hippopotamus, if you break it up into its parts, is the river horse. I think I've mentioned that before. If you enjoy the song, quick side note here, if you enjoy the song Hip 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 Hippopotamus, Hip Hip Hooray, God Made All of Us, we're starting to sing that to our 7-month-old. I can never resist singing about the river horse. I just skip the whole bit about the hippopotamus and go straight to the river horse, but that's because I am a nerd like that. So, we will move on to the word here, hippo, masculine singular genitive. Your book on page 232, footnote 222, glosses this as cavalry. That's because when in the context here of war and soldiers and fighting and things like that, when we're talking about horses, that would be cavalry. That would be cavalry. So that's why this word is horse normally, but here it is glossed as cavalry. So again, we have feminine singular accusative, harmaton. Your book says chariotry. Footnote 223 on page 232. Chariotry is fine. Chariots really is just as good. They mean the same thing. This is a neuter plural genitive. It's neuter plural because of this ending right here, mu alpha. Mu alpha, any noun that ends in mu alpha is a neuter noun. So, and then, so the group is talking, the story is talking about these 4 lepers. So they flee, second aorist active indicative, third plural. It's second aorist because there's been a stem change. The verb is actually fugo. Yeah, the word is actually fugo. The verb, is actually fugo. And so you can see that here there has been a stem change from that epsilon, upsilon to just upsilon. So anyway, that's why that's a second aorist active indicative. Third singular. And then the rest of this is pretty straightforward. Estain heauton. Masculine plural genitive to their own country. Fabuminoi pola. This is from phobeo. Remember the contracts, epsilon plus omicron yields a contraction. That's what we call it, a contraction. And so that means that there's a different vowel combination here. So that's why it, instead of ominoi, like what you're used to, it's uminoi here. But this is the present tense stem. This is the present tense stem. And we have our regular minoi ending. And so with the present tense stem and the minoi ending, we know that this is a present deponent participle, masculine plural nominative. And they are fearing, the soldiers ran away because they were fearing many things. So neuter plural accusative. Pola, if it had no context, it could be neuter plural nominative. the form could be neuter plural nominative or it could be neuter plural accusative. Because this is the object here, it is the thing which these soldiers here are fearing, so it's neuter plural accusative. So putting all of this together then, what we have is, and immediately after being raised up, because it's an aorist passive participle, they went to the tents of their enemies, and behold, there is not one soldier. So the reason why I have typed out there is not one soldier is because that is actually what the Greek says. This is, remember, this is a present tense verb. You could say there was not one soldier, and that would be fine. But sometimes Greek uses what is called the historical present. That even in a past tense narrative, what you have is present tense verbs to kind of liven up the action a little bit. This happens all the time in the Gospels, and so I want you to recognize that Estin up here is present tense, but I also want you to be able to translate it into good English, and so that's one reason why I will caution you about one or the other most of the time. So there was not one soldier, for the Lord had made the soldiers of Syria phonein akusai, to hear a sound, a great sound of power is what this actually says. Sound of power is what this actually says, but it means a powerful sound. That's what it means. It means a powerful sound. So that would be how you would need to translate that into English. So moving on, a sound of cavalry. Again, horse, cavalry. Sound of cavalry. Phonein hippu, phonein harmaton. Sound of cavalry. Sound of chariots. And they fled unto the country of each of them. So that sound that's very woodenly literal, and so it would be something like they fled, to their own country. Yeah, they fled unto their own country, fearing technically many things, but really fearing much. I mean, being afraid of many things. So that is, I did not take much look at this before. I just wanted to, kind of roughly work through this and let you have a little bit of my process here. And I hope that all of this has been helpful. So thank you.